Hi, my name is Sam. This is episode 2 of Becoming a DM for Dungeons and Dragons. This episode covers the first session of the D&D 5e starter set, The Lost Mine of Phandelver. This episode is actually a little bit just more general. It's not quite specific to the starter set, but the things I'm talking about are kind of in context to it because these were like my notes from the first couple sessions. Um, so first up is a quick overview of the gear I recommend you have. I think you can get away with pretty much just having the starter set, but it's not going to be ideal. You're going to want to have some other stuff, and I think it's worth investing up front. If you know that you and your players are all really interested in playing D&D, there's no real reason not to like just spend like the $100 or a couple $100 or something and just get a really nice setup because you're going to use it for the next. I mean, if you do like just the starter set, you're going to be playing for like months, and most likely you'll keep playing after that because you're going to have a blast and want to keep doing it, different adventures and stuff. So in terms of just some recommended starting gear, the D&D 5e starter set, player's handbook, the more the merrier. That's one of the things where you should reach out to your players and be like, if you can, if you're willing to put down the money, please buy a player's handbook because it's going to make every session better, everyone's life easier. I'd also buy sets of dice for everyone, including yourself. It wouldn't be the greatest to have to like share dice. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's nice that your players wouldn't have to invest in that. I try to avoid. Or I try to avoid it, like at the beginning, forcing my players who had never played D&D before to have to invest in a bunch of stuff. I think the player's handbook is one thing where it's like that's worth picking up, but having them be forced to like buy dice and some minis and stuff like that. I would buy that myself and provide it for them at least initially, just because I don't want that to be a barrier to entry. I'd also pick up a DM screen. Although you can easily improvise that with something else, some cardboard or a folder or whatever. I would pick up a battle mat because they're going to make everything a lot cooler. You'll get some wet erase markers. You can draw all over it. It erases right off. It's going to last for a long time. It's definitely worth picking up. Buy a big pack of like mechanical pencils. Print off blank character sheets. I think it's like DungeonsDragons.com. They got a whole bunch of character sheets. They got like a zip file. It's got all of the blank sheets in there you can just print. So definitely have those because I think the starter set only comes with the. Maybe there was a set of blank ones. I can't remember, but it might only have the pre-filled stuff. So printing off print off 10, 20 copies of all the different character sheets just so you have them in the future too. Minis and pawns are really good to have. I mean, minis are just fun to have. They're not necessary. Pawns are really fun to have because they represent the monsters and they got cool little imagery on them. But you don't need them. You could use coins or dice or basically anything else to kind of represent characters and monsters. But they add a lot to the experience, I think. And lastly, you just need some friends and probably some food and some drinks, and you'll be good to go. You're going to spend the first session, a good portion of it, just setting up characters. It actually takes quite a while, especially if you don't have a player's handbook for everyone, because someone's going to have to set up their character, then pass off their book and have that person have set up their character. One thing to do to expedite it, because I had played before and I knew how long that process took, I created some cheat sheets. I actually use Google Drive and a bunch of documents kind of to take notes and add like reminders and things like that. And so what I did for the first session was just set up like page reminders, like here's a quick reference to if you want to jump to the classes, to the races, to languages, to deities, to items, and all that sort of stuff, just so it's super fast. People aren't like flipping through trying to find things. Also, you can just write down the formulas. Some of them are consistent. If you have a blank character sheet, you could have one for yourself that just has like the reminders written on it. Here's how you calculate initiative or proficiency bonus and stuff like that. And that will greatly increase the speed of setting those characters up. You can also, one of the other things I did was I actually set kind of a step-by-step process for it too. So I had everyone do certain things before other things. And I actually don't have those notes in front of me. Maybe I can share that later. But it was like everyone calculate ability scores first, and then pick your skill proficiencies or something. And when you do it all together like that, you can help speed things up a bit. And then, like I mentioned, take notes during your sessions. I have my Chromebook with me. It's a really light little. It doesn't take up much space. I have Google Drive on it, and I just take notes, like what characters they're making, what their names were, and then for these next few checklist items, like character background and how they what they decided about their character in the world and all these sort of things. You'll definitely want to take notes about that because throughout your campaign, it's good to have that stuff as a reminder somewhere so you can build the story around it. It makes things more interesting and more personal, and I think people get more invested in the world if they feel like the things that are unique about them factor into it. So once you get through that process of everyone setting up their characters, a good way to, and they're all ready to play. A good way to kick things off is to go around and just have each person introduce themselves. What's their character name? What's their background? Where did they come from? Give us a little history. Tell us about your motivations. Are you good? Are you evil? All that sort of stuff. Just note that not everything needs to be figured out right out the gate. They can just have, some people are going to be good role players and they're going to have like all these ideas in their head, and that's going to be great. Other people are not going to be familiar with this sort of thing, and they're not going to have very much, or they might need help or something like that generating. People can throw out ideas. It doesn't have to just be them trying to come up with something. And like I said, not everything needs to be figured out. It can evolve over time. In fact, over like the sessions that I've been doing, I let my characters evolve. I don't like to make it feel like they're locked in. I mean, there needs to be some level of consistency, obviously. Something like some past event probably needs to remain consistent because that would make a lot of sense if suddenly it never happened. But I've asked my characters if their alignment has changed, has their motivations changed, have they gone from evil to good or good to evil based on the experiences that they've had in the world. I think that they're heroes. They're going into this adventure, and that's not a normal thing. Like maybe a normal person throughout their life might not change a ton because they just kind of live their life and it's consistent and stuff. But once you become a hero and you're on this adventure, all these crazy things are happening. So it would make sense if you were even had radical, drastic sort of change to who you were because you were witnessing battles and crazy things and maybe conspiracies or corruption in the government that changed your ideas about how things work. So don't try to don't lock your players in or anything like that. Just do a high level for the first session, get an idea of like who they are and what they're doing. But don't dive necessarily into what their deities are, or there's stuff like lifestyle or even their alignment. Maybe they don't really fully understand alignment, and they choose chaotic evil or something, but then like in the next session or session after they realize, oh wait, that's not really what I wanted. Just let them change it. It's not a big deal. Then I would ask them what kind of world they want to play in. I think a cool way to think about it is to interview your players as if you're coming into this world for the first time and they're the ones that are familiar with it. Ask them questions like, what are the cities like? How are they run? Are they pretty well structured? Are they really like just barely keeping things together? Are they corrupt? What's it like to travel between cities? What's the wilderness like? Is magic really prevalent? Like everyone's a little bit magic, or is it really rare and only like a few people in the region have magic? Like just kind of do some interview questions like that, and take notes about it, and then build the world based on that. I think it's cool. I mean, as a DM, you might feel like I need to be the one that determines these things. I got to figure it out and provide that structure. But I think it's more fun if the players can kind of help build it as much as possible. And then you can take your own ideas and their ideas and merge them together and make something that all of you feel invested in together. You all feel like your visions are coming to life, not just yours as the DM. Um, you can also get a little crazier with detail and nuance. There's spells, for instance, have reagents, all the little things that are required to cast them. You could require that for spellcasters. There's stuff like eating and drinking and survival type elements. You could track time really carefully. My party in particular is more just we get together and like our goal is to have a fun time and laugh like crazy and do really crazy things that are not super realistic necessarily. So we don't do a lot of that like nuanced stuff. But maybe your party's different. Maybe you do want to do that. Try to you could ask your players directly, like, do you guys want to do that stuff? Or you could just try to get a feel for it, like, do they seem really serious about this, or do they want you could throw some of those ideas out and just see how they take it. And if they seem really interested, then try to work it in to some level. Although, and then you can evolve it over time. Like if you work it in a little bit, but they seem like really bored by it, then take a step back and remove it. It's kind of an experimental thing. And let's see what else here. I guess I kind of already mentioned this, but just use this information that you're gathering from your players to start generating knowledge about the world for future sessions. You can take what they're saying and then figure out like, well, okay, what would the NPCs that they're going to interact with be like? Because that's where you as the DM really then start to come in. You need to start to figure those things out. It doesn't make sense for the players to generate NPCs, for instance. What do they know? What current events are taking place? One thing that I'll mention probably in the future a little bit more is preparing some like just general dialogue, kind of like in a video game. Like you talk to the NPC in the town, and a lot of them, they know the same stuff. They have the same sort of dialogue because it's related to some current events or some latest rumors or whatever. Have a little bit of that prepared so because your players will totally just do random crap like that, and they'll just be like, I want to talk to this guy, and you're like, oh shit, I totally didn't prepare anything for this character. So then you could turn to your just general notes, which say, here's some general information about the world and what people, just random NPCs would know, and then you can reference that and kind of save yourself from not being prepared. And then it can also help you generate, what the sort of different side quests that could exist in the world. If the world's really dangerous, then maybe there's a lot of side quests for just trying to go out in the wilderness a little bit to retrieve lost things, or some alchemy components, or maybe a mine. They tried to build a mine and it got overrun, and you got to go help recapture it or something like that. Or maybe the options are obviously limitless. But it's good to ask these questions so you can help generate those kind of quests. Lastly, once you got all that sort of general information, it's time to like kick off the actual campaign. So with the starter set, one of the things that I did was one of the first things I did was just, why are you here? Why are you participating? How do you know this Gundren Rockseeker character? Obviously, this would work for any storyline. Just there's a beginning to this story you have in your head. I like to ask my players, like, just why are they there? What do you know each other? You can even roll, like, you can make up fun little rolls, like everyone roll a d20 or maybe a d8 or something like that. Maybe do it a little bit lower and just see if anyone gets duplicate numbers. Maybe those people know each other and the rest don't, or something like that. And that'll help you kind of kick off the storyline. But then after that point, you're really just like, if you have the starter set, you can literally just at that point jump right into it and then start to customize it based on this unique information you gathered from your party. And then I guess my last little recommendation is get a vibe of your party during this first session. Just what are their attitudes like? Do they want to be like really silly and make jokes and do funny things, or are they really serious and they want this world to feel really realistic and really dangerous? Try to pick up on that vibe, and then also factor that into your future sessions. Obviously, if you have a really fun, jokey party and you plan your second session to be really serious and intense, they might not have as much fun that time. So try to pick up on that vibe and roll with it as much as possible. They're from my perspective, they're stars of the story. They're the heroes at the table, not you. You're just like this medium that's providing story and timing and all that sort of stuff for their adventure or their comedy. So try to be there for that, rather than trying to be really controlling. I think that seems to work a lot better. Yeah, so that's like I said, that's just kind of a general session one sort of kickoff. In the next episode, I'll talk more about the actual 5e starter set, the first and second session that I did, and how I started to customize the storyline to make it my own rather than just following what was in the book. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for future episodes. Thanks. See ya.